You are listening to the realestatepodcast.ca, brought to you by jandc Toronto Real Estate Group.
Hello and welcome back to the realestatepodcast.ca. John Paulson here along with Cheryl Mickelwen and Nicole Norton. We are the jandc Toronto Real Estate Group. We also have a very special guest with us because today's episode is Ask a Home Inspector.
Yay! Home Inspector in the house!
Ladies, yes, let's extend that very special welcome to Dano Burnett with Pillar to Post Home Inspections. Dano, would you do us the honor of reading our disclaimer?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me here today. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities we represent.
Thank you. We have to say that so we don't get in trouble.
Okay.
Because we say some questionable things during our podcast.
I hope so. Give it a little bit of spice.
I think you're going to fit right in. So, thanks so much for being with us. We're actually really excited to have you as a guest because we get a lot of people asking about home inspections. We do a lot ourselves. Actually, you and I did an inspection yesterday. And the homeowner texted about 45 minutes in and was like, okay, are you done yet? And are you able to share the findings? And it's a misconception that we'll talk about that these things can happen very quickly. But we'll get into that when we do some questions. But if you don't mind, Dano, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how awesome you are?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, like you said, it's Dano Burnett. I'm with Pillar to Post. I'm a owner-operator of a franchise here in Toronto. I'm currently going into my 6th year as a home inspector.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Gifts typically come in, but you didn't really know, so you can put some thought into that. Prior to home inspecting, I was in heating and cooling for 7 years. I really love the homes, all the aspects and different entities that I get to look at, and it's a lot of fun just dealing with people, situations, resolutions, and everything that's neat and interesting that we find.
Nice. That's what we find both the most rewarding and frustrating things, working with people.
But it's fun. And like us, it's different every day.
It's different every day. I say I don't get to choose the people or the homes. So it's kind of a gift sometimes.
Yeah.
When I get there, sometimes it's not a gift that I really want. But you take the good with the ugly.
Yeah. It's a re-gift.
Definitely a re-gift at times. Yeah.
Awesome. So, today our goal is to answer some frequently asked questions about home inspections. I do have a list of questions here that we're going to get to. But before that, I want to explain to our listeners that there are kind of two main scenarios that would require us working with a home inspector, at least for us realtors working in the residential resale segment of the market. And as many of our listeners know by now, we work with kind of two separate entities as realtors, both the buyer and the seller. And we typically will see with home inspections, there is a buyer inspection. And that is when usually a buyer will submit an offer on a property that will be conditional on something. Typically for a freehold property, it will be on a home inspection. And then the other side would be if we're representing a seller, and as part of our services, for the most part, we will do a pre-list home inspection and do that on behalf of the seller. And there's reasons why we do that. And there's kind of a third one that we'll talk about a little bit, and that may be like a health of the home kind of checkup. And Absolutely. We'll let you talk about that in a bit. So let's start with the buyer because, typically you go in, you offer a property, it's conditional on the home inspection. If it's accepted, we give Dano a call. And
conditions are usually 3 to 5 days.
That's right.
So you have to try and get that home inspector in there quite quickly so they have time to do the inspection and the buyer has time to process the information they've learned.
So you're saying you have 3 to 5 days to get me in?
That's right.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Sometimes it's that same day.
Well, 1 day conditions, we will, sometimes the seller may want a 1 day condition, but it becomes a little more difficult because then you have to be available.
Absolutely.
Not to say that anyone, oh my God, foot in the mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be 1 day, 1 to 5 days.
No, I'm just teasing. It does happen. We try and accommodate.
As quickly as possible.
Yeah, because it is a fluid situation constantly.
Yeah. Let's hope it's not a fluid situation in the home, like a leaky faucet or
But
Thank you.
That was
Thank
quite
you.
the home inspection joke.
Thank you. And I'm not even a dad. Yeah, but typically 3 or 5 day. We'll usually get in touch with Dano because he makes himself available. And when we say 3 to 5 days, it's 3 days or 5 days for us to waive the inspection.
Yeah.
It may take a few days
Waive
for
the inspection condition.
Yes, it may take a few days for the buyer and the buyer's dad and the family to look over and see, listen, do we want to go through and accept this house in the condition that it's in? And we can even talk about the fact that if there are major deficiencies, maybe they don't want to move forward, or if they do move forward, they may ask for an abatement due to the costs involved in kind of taking care of some major deficiencies. So, and we've done that in the past as well. But with a buyer inspection, when we send a buyer over to you, I know that they can now order things on the portal. If you wouldn't mind just letting us know what are some of the add-ons that you offer? It's not just a straight up inspection.
No, so I mean, it starts with we've got a little bit of something for everybody. So it's not one and done. So we'll offer 3 different types of inspections on a purchase inspection, on a buyer's inspection. You know, all 3 levels of the inspection, we look at the same entities of the home. So, you know, from the roof to the foundation, the heating, the cooling, the electrical, and everything in between. But some people have different needs and different wants. So our inspections are a plus inspection, a premium, and a prestige. So when we go up to a premium inspection from a plus inspection, what we're doing there is we're adding in a little bit more, some tools and some techniques. You know, we're looking at infrared imaging, which is really cool. I mean, A, it's fun to use, but B, it's very helpful. And the primary vision for the infrared is we're trying to source any type of moisture. You know, if it's in the walls, in the floors, in the ceiling, you know, which can lead to other issues if we didn't know that. So really a home inspection is knowledge. And I always say to clients that knowledge is key. And without the knowledge, you're really guessing at what the condition is. So we would use the infrared imaging. We always secondary that with a moisture meter, because infrared can also, you know, if you're looking at it's a discrepancy in energy. So from heat to cool, you know, if let's say the air conditioning is in that wall as well, it may look like moisture. We would hate to say, oh yeah, this wall has a big leak, but really it was just the air conditioning that was coming up there. So we always want to secondary our findings. So that would be something we did there with the premium.
Cool.
And then we do a 360 tour. So it's called DocuSketch, and basically it's a guide that you can walk around the house, and you know, you can look up, you can left and right.
Yeah.
And then we integrate the report right into that. So when you're reading a report, you know, if you're not at the inspection, sometimes you're trying to understand what the findings are. But with the 360, it'll bring you, you know, right to the kitchen. There's a little sandwich bar that you click, and it pops down and it says, there's a leak under the sink. Boom, there's a picture of the leak underneath the sink. So you're not, you know, trying to be the investigator or detective to figure out where the heck this stuff is.
That's cool.
So it just
I like it.
eases what you're trying to do there.
Yeah.
That's
great. No, that's awesome. Yeah, all I heard was sandwich board because I'm kind of hungry.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm joking. Straight way to my heart is my stomach.
Are you ready for questions?
Yeah. Hammer it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the price difference between them? And I know your inspections are depend on the size.
Absolutely. It's a great question. You know, it really does depend on the size of the home. So we say, well, what's a typical home? Well, if you've been in Toronto, it's a very difficult question because we have numerous different types of homes.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, if we're looking at a 1,500 square foot house to a 2,500 square foot house, it'd kind of be an average of you know, what I see on a day-to-day basis, somewhere between $500 and $600.
And that's for the premium?
That would be for your plus inspection. Going up to a premium is approximately 20% more.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, we're jumping ahead to one of my questions because it
Sorry.
was the
Absolutely.
question.
But you said that we might
I know.
I know.
Pricing.
Pricing is a question we get all the time. And just to tell you, so when you go up from that to a premium, a prestige, really it's something that we're doing air sampling and mold sampling.
Oh.
So, you know, when I talk to clients, not everybody, you know, it's great to have air sampling and everybody can benefit from it. But if you have respiratory issues, if you've got a newborn, these are things that are really important and resonate with people.
That's great.
To make sure that their home is healthy.
Yeah.
And that they're moving into an environment that's, you know, conducive to great memories and doing it in a way that everyone feels happy and healthy and
This is really good for us to know, because if we're working with a buyer client and they do have some kind of special requirements for things like that, if they have respiratory illnesses, then we can send them over to you and say we'd recommend that you also get an air quality test. Because I see that here are some add-ons, obviously mold testing, asbestos if it is found in the home. Can you arrange to have somebody?
So asbestos is an interesting one, and we come across it in older homes quite frequently.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
We had it in our house when we bought it.
Absolutely. I had it in mine as well. Asbestos, it's same with mold. I kind of construe them together. We can look at a wall and say, oh, well, it's black mold. Well, black mold isn't actually the scientific name. We just construe it as black mold because it's dark and it's on the wall and it's moldy. But looking at it, it could be a mildew, it could be a moisture. So we really have to do a test on that to properly identify that. So nobody can just look at it and be like, that's asperella or whatever the different type of molds are. So we would do a tape lift or a swab, air sampling to identify that. And the same goes with asbestos. We look at it day in and day out, so we have a very strong understanding. But when you're doing a report and something's conditioned on some of the evidence, we really have to take that sample and send it to an environmentalist and have a third party tell us what that result is. So it's not coming from me. I've identified it, but somebody will confirm my findings.
Sure. And you identify it as, with asbestos in particular, could contain
absolutely
asbestos.
Yeah.
Right.
It won't be a definitive answer until we get that report back.
Got it. Awesome. What about wet inspections? And with all of these additional kind of tests and inspections, can you refer and recommend people that do that? Or
so with respects to wet certification would be fireplaces.
Right. For those of you that don't know,
and identifying if the chimney is intact, if there's any fire hazards, has it been cleaned in the last decade?
Right. Is there creosote buildup?
That's it. Yeah.
Is there
Look at
rats?
that.
Rats live there.
Hopefully not the second one or chrysalis. But I don't do wet certification, but I would recommend somebody that I have confidence in.
Right.
And I've seen their abilities, I've seen their reports to do wet certification.
Okay.
Fireplaces.
I didn't realize that was such a specialty.
Yeah, well, fireplaces are a little bit of a dying breed. People are going more into gas fire.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually having the wood in their house.
And by the way, WET stands for Wood Energy Transfer Technology, I think.
Exactly.
Okay, wow, I got it right. Anyway, if it's not
big words, that start with T.
If we Google this later and it's wrong, you just
I'll bleep it out. I'll cut it out, or I'll put something on the YouTube where it actually says what it is.
I want to say, you said someone you have confidence in, and this is a good segue just to make this comment that I think we'll go into a little bit more later, that not all home inspectors are created equal, and I would imagine that not all wet inspectors are created equal, and not all whatever the inspection, you guys are all self-employed independent contractors, right? Yeah. So it's up to you to have that knowledge and that expertise.
Wood Energy Technology Transfer.
Okay, I was close. Technology
you just
transfer.
inverted the two, right?
Yeah. It's my dyslexia kicking
good.
in. That's awesome. I can't wait to get to these questions, so I want to jump ahead.
Sorry, I jumped
That's
ahead.
fine.
That's
No,
all right.
I just want
exciting.
We're so excited
when
to
we were
have
like
you
the
here.
home inspector, it's not the fancy stager putting beautiful, stuff inside the home, making it look gorgeous.
No, you're putting beautiful information in people's head because knowledge is power.
Yeah.
You're giving
Safety
people
first.
power and safety.
Love that.
Absolutely. So that's on the buyer side of things. On the seller side of things, obviously it's the same inspection, but there's different reasoning as to why we would go ahead, if we're representing a seller, to go and have the inspection done. Question for you: what percentage of sellers versus like pre-list inspections is it, would you say, versus buyer inspection?
Well, that's a great question, and it really changes with the market.
Okay.
So, right now the market has changed a bit. So it seems like it's more of a buyer's market than a seller. So there's a fair percentage more of purchasing inspections versus pre-listing. Right now, I would probably put it into the 25% pre-listing inspection, 75 on the buyer side.
Right.
Flipped 2 years ago.
It did, yeah. So like 2 years ago, or when we were in the, the COVID times.
Yeah.
It was pre-listing.
Yeah.
You know, conditions were
We're not a thing.
Non-existent.
mythical. It was the unicorn.
I would say probably that it would depend on the market area as well, because even when it was a seller's market, there were Durham listings that were expecting people to come in with no conditions, and they wouldn't bother doing a home inspection, a pre-list home inspection. Whereas Toronto agents tend to, even in a buyer's market, at least we do, try to get ahead of everything, and that's kind of why we do the pre-list home inspections. So. We will be able to get ahead of any deficiencies or anything like that. Not only that, how we also want any potential buyer to be able to come to the table confidently without a home inspection condition, because they've already received a home inspection to look at, so that they're going in eyes wide open. We find it's very helpful, because working on our seller's behalf, we want to try to encourage as many offers as possible and firm offers with no conditions. So.
And not putting anyone in danger of, you know, just throwing it to the wind. Like, here, we're helping you. We don't want you to go in without knowledge. We want you to come in without a condition, but not without knowledge.
Yeah, confident.
We want to do everything we can to protect our buyers when we're representing them, and having a home inspection is one of those ways to do it, right? So
I saw a sign not too long back, and I can't remember what the agency attached to it. It doesn't really matter, but it had a crystal ball and a realtor, and it, you know, essentially saying, you know, which one of these is really going to help you out? You know, and the crystal ball is lovely, and if you put a lot of faith in that, but you know, you should really use the professional.
Yes,
exactly.
And you know, just to flip back to the buyer-seller market, you know, coming from the home inspector, and people say, "Oh, it's because you're the home inspector," but I really don't understand why there's a difference in not doing the pre-listing inspection. You know, as you say, getting ahead of it and understanding the home as a realtor before you put it to market, it just gives you an advantage.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of misconceptions surrounding it that I've seen on Facebook chat groups about how some realtors believe that if they are the ones agreeing to the inspection, then they are now liable for and there is vast confusion.
But
I'm
getting
so confused,
ahead
I don't understand their confusion.
That's fair, and I'm confused just listening to you.
Yeah,
but I agree. Yeah, and it's, you know, the inspection isn't always in the realtor's name. It can be in the homeowner's name if that's ever a worry.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't really understand where the liability would come into play there. You're doing your due diligence.
Yeah,
So
you're
you should
getting
do
ahead of
that.
it.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. Like, is the seller leaving themselves open to something? Why should they bother getting one?
I feel like this is another podcast.
It is,
altogether.
and we are limited to time here. So I just
I just want to say we do the seller's pre-list home inspection. Why we choose to do it, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is to get ahead of any issues, also to know what we're up against. So when a buyer does bring in an offer, we're not going in and being surprised by something they find later on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, another thing that I love is that you, in your inspection, and you also say that when we have a buyer coming to one of our listings, we provide them with the pre-list home inspection. You say, listen, if that buyer or buyer's agent has any questions, give me a call.
Yeah.
And we've had,
man, have they used this option?
yeah, I believe someone
We've had
even
really great
I believe,
feedback.
I believe someone even came and took you up on walking them back through the property again at a
Yeah.
listing that we had just here in Leslieville.
It's such an important
Thanks, Dano.
part of the purchase, and being, you know, I'll go back a bit. When I'm doing the inspection, I highly endorse if clients can be there.
Yes.
You know, you read an inspection, not all inspections are built the same, but you get so much more in a conversation than just reading a report.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So I will 100% talk to the purchasers, you know, help them understand what's there, what's transpired. You know, you guys can all attest, if it's a first-time home buyer, there's a fair amount more questions.
Yeah.
And I've been on the phone for hours with people before. Yeah. And that's fun. That's part of the gig. I love, you know, helping them, educating them. And if that's what it takes, then that's what you do.
Yeah.
I want to, something you just said about it's a different feeling being with you while you're doing the home inspection and just reading it. And I have had this conversation with the two of you before, that it's sometimes scary if you see could contain asbestos.
Yeah.
But when you're walking through with you and you're like, no, this is 100% normal. It may or may not. This isn't going to be a problem if it's not disturbed. Hearing it from the home inspector's mouth is way different than reading something scary on the paper.
Yeah, we like your matter of fact, you're thorough, but you're not necessarily alarmist.
Yeah.
And, you know, because you had mentioned before that, actually yesterday, you said, listen, if anything that I find, everything can be fixed. right?
There's a solution for everything.
Yeah.
And being able to understand that and being there to go over the little different idiosyncrasies of why and what potentials could come up or not.
Super helpful to have the buyers there with you.
I would say that's the downfall of a pre-list home inspection, is that sometimes they don't have,
Yeah.
it's just somebody who's quickly looking at a home inspection and considering the house and they're not 100% bought, that kind of little thing might scare them
Yeah,
if they don't
and that's why
have
we
that.
encourage them to call Dano, for sure. Yeah.
Call
And
Sal.
just as a plug for Dano, really, I remember one offer night in particular, we were working with a number of people and there was something in the inspection and, people kept bringing it up and we were like, you're welcome to call the inspector. And I think 3 realtors were like, oh, we've spent a long time. And we're like, oh, Dano really got our money's worth on this one. They all called you to chat for long periods of time.
Yeah.
No, it's twofold for me. I mean, I want to help the customers, but then I create a lot of business relationships speaking to the other realtors.
Yeah.
Saying like, you know what, my the inspector that we're using right now, A and B, don't do this or wouldn't do this.
Yeah. You go above and beyond. Kind of, we're similar mindset, full service and to try to come from
absolutely.
contribution.
Have fun.
Yeah. I don't want
Fun.
So there are some buyers though that are so skeptical with the pre-list home inspection that they're like, why would I accept this inspection that's done by the seller? I want my own. What are your thoughts there, ladies and gentlemen?
Silly.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be
Third
an
party.
independent third party, right?
Yeah, I would say if it's a Mickey Mouse inspection and it doesn't look like it's very thorough, maybe that would be a comment that you'd hear and would have some meaning to it. But generally speaking, I would say that if we were offering with our buyers on a house and Dano did the pre-list home inspection, we would say to our buyers, listen, this is a good home inspector. This is a third party that is, what would you call yourself?
Oh, I'm
Handsome.
I was gonna say handsome.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I call myself Switzerland.
Yes.
Yeah, like I'm an
yeah.
arbitrary entity. If you buy the house, I'm really happy for you.
Yeah.
If there's a reason you don't buy it, I'm happy that you found that reason, and hopefully you'll find something that really works for you and your family.
It's got to be matter of fact. Everything that you see there, you're not pulling for one side or the other.
No,
it's fully
absolutely.
impartial.
When I look at it, I honestly go into it, if it's a pre-list or if it's a buyer's inspection, as if I'm the one purchasing the house.
Right.
What are the things that matter to me? What are the typical things that could be a deficiency here, and make sure that they're not, or they are, and then I know that, and I can identify it and say, you know what, this really isn't a big deal, or it is a big deal, and we know this.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I've had only once or twice where someone has not necessarily taken a pre-list at face value with one that we think is fine. And then they've done an inspection and they've done it once, seen that it's same, and then have not continued to do
Yeah.
it. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Now they see it's the
Yeah.
same. Why are we going to continue to?
And that's totally, the onus is on them to be able to do that. And we would say it's, you don't have to. And we explain that it's a third party and that Dano is Switzerland. But if somebody wants to go ahead and do it, and people do it. Yeah. All right, let's get to maybe the third part. When you're not working with a buyer or a seller, sometimes we've recommended to our clients, if they've owned a home for a while or if there wasn't an inspection on the home when they bought it, just to go ahead and do that as a checkup on the health of their property. What do you say to that, Dano?
I say that's a great idea, John. I know if we were taking points here, John's up 2 right now. I mean, Nicole had the handsome comments. So she's in there. Cheryl's got it. She's going to finish strong. No, it's a great point, and I would say maybe 3 to 5% of my inspections I will do on post purchases or people that have been living in their home and don't have plans on moving out. Another scenario is renovations.
Right.
It wasn't long back. I did an inspection on a house because somebody was about to do a major renovation to their kitchen, hundreds of thousands of dollars, which was their budget, but they wanted to make sure that there was no underlying ailments in their home that would be significant monetary outputs. So it really is a good thing if you're planning on staying in your home. Unfortunately, you won't see these 3 lovely people as much, but it gives you, peace of mind that your home is safe and there's no issues there, but then you can move forward with whatever renovation and vision you have.
Right.
And know
Peace
the
of mind.
cost of your renovation, maybe. How many times have we heard of people starting a renovation, then it's like, oh no, guess
they
what we
uncover
found?
something.
Yeah.
Now it completely kiboshes what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
And you may not find absolutely everything with a home inspection,
No,
but there's and we'll get to that in just a
If you
little
were
bit.
doing checkups, how often would you recommend, or how often do you do a checkup on your house? I mean, or a home inspector.
Well, as a home inspector,
every 6 months.
every other weekend. No, a couple times a year you should be looking at your house at a minimum. Doing a walk around on the exterior. Mother Nature is lovely, but can be very harsh. And, every realtor would say, oh, there's caulking improvements in your home inspection. It should just be built right in there. And it really should.
Yeah.
Because it's rare that you don't. So
Water is the enemy.
Water is the enemy. And I know we talk about what are some of the major things that we find, and it's water. So I'm going around my house twice a year, minimal, looking for these things. As a home inspector, it's very hard to walk down the street or do anything and not be looking at a home, looking up, looking down.
Once you see things,
drives
you can't
my wife
unsee
bonkers.
them.
Like, let's just go for a walk. We don't need to see what the roof looks like.
Everyone. Don't if you see Dano walking down your street, he's judging your house.
He's out to lunch. He's slapping down, and he's like, "Whoa, can't stop!
cool.
I can't stop."
I think that means you like your job.
I love my
Yes.
job. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, we've spoke to some of our buyer clients and recommended that. Yeah, you should at least every maybe 4 or 5 years if you haven't. If you're not always walking around with that mindset of where can I improve my house so that I don't have to spend a lot of money down the line. It's just about
general
property maintenance. Yeah.
And one of the things I say to clients, typically would be on the buyer side, not with the pre-listing, is it's not one and done. Like if you have questions about your home and you're not sure what you should be looking at, reach out to me.
Cool.
I can't tell you what I had for breakfast, but I will remember just about everything that I did in your house 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish I could use those powers for like lottery.
Yeah.
But, so it's again, and that comes down to who you're choosing.
Yes.
And who the inspector is and the kind of relationship you have with those people.
We say not all inspectors are created equal. We say not all mortgage brokers, not all realtors. It's one of the reasons why we feel really comfortable using you because, you've proven with us over the years that you're thorough, conscientious, handsome.
Handsome.
What do you? That would be a good segue. Other than handsome, what do you look for in a home inspector?
Well,
Dano.
to me, it's simple. Like when I talk to clients, it's like do your research. Okay,
Right.
Nowadays everybody's on Google.
Yeah.
And take a look at reviews. Call the home inspector. Perhaps speak to some of the realtors that they've worked with before. Those are all key things. But really, are they insured?
Sure.
And it sounds funny to say, but are you insured? I own a franchise. I have $2 million errors and omission insurance. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. For me personally, I couldn't do this without insurance, but my corporation dictates that as well.
Yeah.
So are they insured? That's a big thing.
Sure.
Yes.
And we're actually getting into the questions now because one of the things is what kind of training and certifications are required here in Ontario?
Yeah. And
Good question.
That's a great question and a scary question.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there are zero regulations.
Wow.
Ontario.
Yeah.
So you're a home inspector. You're a home
It's
inspector.
mind-blowing, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am a home inspector, Dano.
It's not just like selling ice cream. Like, there's a lot to know.
There's a lot to
So
go.
home inspector, if somebody hires one, it's not required that they be insured or that they...
Absolutely.
That's wild.
I'm
glad you are.
You come across it, I'm sure. There's part-time people that do a lot of things.
Yeah.
They've got 5 different part-time gigs.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're bad people.
Right.
But they're not focusing on
have a lot.
one thing.
Yeah.
What you focus on expands.
So you are with Pillar to Post.
Yes.
You own a Pillar to Post franchise. So if the regular consumer is to look to someone that has a Pillar to Post, do they regulate you in some way?
They do,
Are
absolutely.
there-
That's a great question. So Pillar to Post has an education that you have to go through and pass.
Okay.
Right? So although the government doesn't dictate it, they do.
So it's like self-regulated within...
It's a self-regulated, it's a great program, some unbelievable professors and teachers. And you go through and you're going to learn all the aspects from structure, the ins and outs, everything to do with the home, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And it's not because you paid, you get that. You do have to pass that.
Sure.
And then you've got ongoing certifications through the corporation.
Okay. So there are certain types of certifications you can get, even though they're not mandatory.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And continuous education. every single day there's some form of a phone call or learning program that I can go to or log on to. Now it's mostly online.
Okay.
Just to, sharpen your pencil.
That's great.
Things are constantly changing and we're evolving. Our tools change and how we do things and what we look at.
Nice.
It sounds a lot like realtors because we are also self-employed.
Although we have to be.
We do have to have more certifications, but the ongoing education and the continuing education, like we can choose to or choose not to. So every realtor is different. There are going to be some that want to make sure they're sharpening their pencil more often than others. And it sounds to me like you're somebody who takes your job very seriously and wants to be the expert.
That's it.
I think that you'll be more successful as a business owner, which is essentially what you are, providing better service if you're in fact expanding your knowledge and therefore being able to provide better service to your clients.
I will say though that, I don't have every answer.
What?
And I know.
Get out of
I
here.
know.
Yeah.
Mind blown here.
At least you're handsome.
Right? If you're going to have one thing, it's and that comes to, I'll say to the client, if I haven't seen something, and I've seen just about everything, but not all. And I'll never look at you and say, I know that answer. But what I will do is say, I don't know this answer, but I'm going to go to my community. I'm going to find you this answer.
Awesome. That's cool. Okay, next question is, what are the main things that you check for? I think actually you did cover that, but if you don't mind just rehashing that.
Yeah, so I have my process that I like to stick to.
Yep.
You're far better when you do the same type of thing all the time. So I get to a house, I start with the exterior, and I always go around the house one way and then you go around the other way. People are like, why on earth would you do that? You see different things when you're walking around the house, so it's very important. Also to walk away from the house and take a look. Is this house leaning? Is it straight? How's the structure? Trees, all that type of stuff. Lately, I've a bit of a bad back, so I've been using my drone more often.
Okay.
So the drone to take a look at the roof structure, the shingles, the chimney, get some amazing footage with that. Come inside the house, we're going to look at, the heart of the home, as I call it. So your electrical, your heating and cooling, your plumbing, and the foundation, all in the basement. And then, just work my way back up to the attic, which is usually the last thing. It's I'd say the least favorite of all things that I look at because it's usually dark, damp, and dusty.
Right.
But, we
cool.
still got to go in because there's a lot of information that is provided inside the attic. That we need to know.
With a lot of those, bringing myself to our next question. Ladies, do you want to ask the next question?
Which lady would you like? Do you want us to do it at the same time?
What are some of the most common defects or problems that you do see?
So really, one of the biggest things is water management.
Yeah.
And, it a lot of times can be a very easy resolution. But if they don't know what's happening or they're complacent, it can become a real problem. So the amount of wet basements I find, because a downspout is dumping right next to the foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the grading of the house is sloped back to the house. So there really is no option for that water to escape anywhere but go south and then eventually come into the home.
Right.
So, it comes down to just doing that quick walk around your home and looking at things from a logical standpoint. You don't have to be an engineer to figure that stuff out. Water will take the path of least resistance. And we would rather it go away from our home.
I think a lot of people these last 2 weeks have learned what
yeah.
that path is.
I know. I feel called out. I got some water.
Torrential
stuff going on.
downpour.
Another one
Toronto.
yesterday. I left John and then it was like
Yeah.
heavens open.
That was crazy. How's your truck?
It's leaking.
Okay.
Jeez.
Oh yeah.
And the seal.
Having a good month.
I think the downspout and grading is something in my memory I can say I've seen in most home inspections.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy fix. Grading maybe not so much, but at least downspouts going away from the property.
Even grading, it's sweat equity.
Yeah.
If you have the ability, and not everybody does, but it
back.
just takes bad back. It just takes a little bit of energy, a little bit of willingness to do it.
Kind of going back to you saying everything is fixable, and then you saying at what cost?
At what cost?
Just-
and time, effort, and cost, obviously. Yeah.
May I ask the next question?
It's an exciting one.
What is the worst thing you've ever seen? And do you have any horror stories
You must.
I do have a few.
that you can share?
It was a funny one, not too funny at the time, I guess. I was doing a house and I really didn't understand why I was doing an inspection. I thought this house would be torn down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was really awful. Yeah, I would never say that to them, but
You're getting teary.
Yeah, it was scary. Like, I looked at the front door and I thought, there's not a chance my shoes are coming off, right? And I don't know if I want to put anything down. Yeah. But I continued with the inspection, did it, and last thing, like I said, is the attic. And I popped the hatch open and I put my head in as my light's on, and there's a body.
No.
And I just about fall off my ladder, and I'm like, I get my wits about me, and there's a mannequin perched up in the attic.
But you already have the heebie-jeebies from being in 100%,
right? Like the house, the environment, I'm, on the edge. And then this, I was like, oh my gosh. Now, I love a good joke, practical joke. You got to give and you got to be able to take.
Yeah.
This wasn't, I don't know that this was a joke, but man, did they get me. I was shaking.
It's funny. It's like the old joke that contractors do when they're doing kitchens. If there's ever a dead space in the corner, sometimes they'll put the fake skeleton or something like that there.
I feel like we should start doing that.
So that was a good one that, it made me laugh, it made me cry, but I was definitely shaken up.
We have a bit of a horror story when we were going through a house that was almost condemned, and Cheryl was doing some stories about it. And there was a rat's nest in a fridge and black mold. And one of the inspectors that reached out to us and
we
said,
didn't know it was black mold.
Yeah, but anyway, he's like, you need to get out of there right away.
He's like, you aren't in there right now. You need to get out. And I was like, I took a picture inside, definitely in.
Yeah.
And when you said stories, you mean Instagram stories.
And so
stories,
Cheryl left and John
Yes.
stayed inside
Thank you
to
for
do
remembering
more.
that.
Yes.
Thank you for remembering that. I was like, all right, I'm out. It
That's
was
commitment.
disgusting.
You're
I
like,
know.
I got to finish the
And
story.
He's the kind of person that needs to open absolutely everything. Try every switch, open every cupboard. So he opened the fridge, which is where he
Instagram
found the
story.
rat's nest.
There was a hole eaten through the back of the fridge, and
Oh
they've made
my
a rat's
gosh.
nest in there. I'm not the sharpest tool
Yeah,
in the
no,
shed sometimes.
that's not a great one. I'm glad it was you and it wasn't me.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your...
last week. I was in a house, and again, I'm walking up to the house, and I'm thinking, this is not very well kept, and this was a purchase. And then we go inside. I start in the basement, and there's dead rats. And I said, do you guys know that there's rats in the basement? And they're like, yeah. I said, what? Oh, no. Oh, really? And so the rats didn't die in between you buying this house and me coming? Oh, no. The rats were dead there when we bought the house. And then the mold. There's mold on every single floor. I said to the realtor, like, it's not my side of the transaction here, but if I were to be selling a home, I think at the least I would do is just
Clean
maybe
up the
sweep
dead
up the rats.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a perfectionist, but come on.
That's to scare the other rats away, though.
Yeah, and well, we were in the one room and there was a dead rat, and I said, the word is rats, right? And we only see one of them at this point.
Okay.
So they're somewhere else.
Wow.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Well, you'd think that in the contract, if you put clean, broom swept condition, and the fact that the rats are not affixed to the property, they're chattels. They wouldn't come with the property.
That is fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
Good point, John.
Thank you very much. I got one for you. Who gets a copy of the inspection?
So it's a great question. The who pays for the inspection owns the inspection.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not my inspection, it's their inspection.
To do what they want with?
To do what they want. They can provide it to other people, or they can keep it under lock and key.
Got it. The only reason we're mentioning this is because we've had a scenario where we've represented a buyer. We've come through with our home inspector, and they've chosen not to go through and not waive the home inspection condition for whatever reason. And then the sellers have reached out to us saying, we would like a copy of the inspection. Can we have it? Can we pay for it? And so, again, it's up to the buyer then.
And
as
they
to what
didn't want
want.
it, just to clarify, they didn't want it to prove why they were walking away. They wanted it to be able to provide for any new buyers that came to the table.
Correct, yeah.
Similarly, we lost out once on an offer night, and our clients had done their own inspection before the offer night, and we weren't the successful offerer. And then the listing agent reached out and said, can we have that home inspection that you did? No, do your own.
Well, you can maybe say, sure, $500.
Yeah.
And then the buyer can recoup those costs. Because that's the other thing. If it's an offer night and there's multiple offers and they don't have a pre-list home inspection, some of our buyers have said, I want to get in and do an inspection. And so the buyer will pay the $500 or $600 for the inspection. And if they're not the successful offerer, that's $500 or $600 for their own peace of mind had they bought the property. But if they don't successfully offer, if it's not accepted, then
If anything, like what Nicole was saying, then they get an idea of what the inspection looks like and will they need to do it again, kind of idea.
Next question, Nicole.
So I'm just looking through, and some of them. Oh, Oh, actually, that's a great question.
Isn't it?
What I was wondering personally, Dano, was do you provide
Just off the cuff?
Yes. yes. Do you provide a cost estimate for repairs?
That's a great question, Nicole.
Thank you.
Been thinking about that one for a while, I'm sure. So this is a frequent question when I'm doing a home inspection. It doesn't matter buyer or pre-listing. What are the costs? What are the costs? So first thing I say to people is I'm not the contractor, right? So the home inspector is not a contractor. So if I personally don't have a relevant cost, I've just built a house, so I have some costs that are relevant. I will not be forthcoming with that. But with Pillar to Post, we have a company called Bosscat. And when you do an inspection, you're going to receive an email that says, do you allow the release of this inspection to Bosscat? And Bosscat is a third-party company that will take the report and then look at all the deficiencies and put a cost estimate next to it.
Amazing.
Now, I always like to highlight it's an estimate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Toronto is a wonderful beast that has many contractors.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
there is a grain of salt attached to that, but it gives you an understanding of where you're going to lie with some major things. And then for budgeting,
Right.
because you're purchasing this house, this is something that is, in your wheelhouse to fix.
Yeah.
Another thing, I used Pillar to Post out east, and I'm just when you said that
Brunswick.
extra
Out east in New Brunswick.
In New Brunswick,
Yes.
that's right. And you drop into a city, you have to find a home inspector. We just picked Pillar to Post because it was a great company. But they actually also took all the serial numbers off of our appliances,
Yeah.
ran them through some program you have, and we'd get a yearly report on whether there was any recalls on our appliances.
Absolutely. So that's
That's
included
great.
in both the premium and prestige packages.
Excellent.
We can add it to the plus package as well if it's something that is important to a client. But we'll put all the serial numbers into the recall program and you'll get that. And there's a million different things you can add into that. And it's amazing what comes back
Yeah.
deficient
Yeah.
or safety.
Yeah.
The number one, what do you guys think the number one thing that's recalled in the house?
Dishwasher.
Nicole is killing it today.
She's got it, yeah? That's it, dishwasher.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Well,
The dishwasher. I can't tell you
Did
why.
you have one to
But
recall?
that's-
I was just thinking, I was like, what could the fridge do? Not that much. Look, the stove could burn your house down. I was
Yeah.
you would have
Yeah.
guessed that, but
Yeah, it's the dishwasher.
yeah.
What broken
Why?
seals or leaks?
Yeah,
and
seals,
stuff?
motors.
Because
like-
water.
Water.
Because water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I'm gonna put that in the
Let's go.
takeaways. Water.
Yeah.
Bad.
Water bad. Unless you're showering.
That's
Good.
it. I always say it's straight on the outside.
Can I say?
Yeah, please.
What about the things you can't see? So like foundation or behind walls or even behind furniture.
Yeah. So what I do is I put my Clark Kent glasses on.
Clark Kent.
Try that
That's
again.
a tongue twister. I put my Clark Kent glasses on.
Makes you more handsome.
Yeah, I get 3 more Richter scales up the handsome level there. And no, it's a question that is asked all the time. What's going on behind the wall?
Yeah.
And I really can't tell you what structurally is happening there. This is where if you're on a purchase inspection, buyer's inspection, the infrared imaging, that is our best chance at viewing behind, a drywall or a plaster or something like that. Infrared's not going to look through concrete, but it will give us more information that can be very useful to the purchase or the sell. So if we can't see it, I can't comment on it. I do my very best. I'm stubborn. Ask any of my family members. So I will do my best to crawl into every nook and cranny of that home. If it's the attic, it doesn't matter. I often will have to, not that I enjoy, but I'll dismantle something to be able to enter an attic.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
But I'm not moving furniture, and I'll always ask permission.
Yes.
You have to, right?
Yeah, so I can't just go ahead and do that. If I get the green light,
Yeah.
I set the parameters.
Sure.
And I will do it, or I'll ask for help. Or if the homeowner say, I'll ask them to do it as well for me.
That's cool. With the attics, I know that we've seen some that are either screwed shut or, inaccessible because of furniture.
Like ours.
Like ours, yeah. We actually installed an open closet system. And I had to actually screw 2 of the posts up into the attic hatch. You can take it off if you need to get back up there,
butt.
but yeah, it is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get in physically.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge guy, but I
Right.
can only contort myself into certain positions.
Well, then you should probably be doing yoga in your spare time.
Yeah.
And I think you note in the inspection as well that like maybe some basement walls were not reviewable or accessible just
Yeah.
because there's, especially when people maybe are getting ready to move and they've got all boxes and,
Yeah.
and things all blocking something.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put
I sense
everything
sarcasm.
into the mechanical room.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
of
can
course.
see absolutely nothing. Yeah.
I'm sure there's always clues, though, as to maybe you can't see behind and you can't give a definitive answer, but you can see clues to there being potential issues.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can't get in and I can't remove something that's, you know,
A clue.
tons of furniture and things of that nature, you do. I say to people, if you have kids, this, you know, we're going to use Blue's Clues here, all right? And we're going to put all these clues together and try and get our answer, because that's the best chance that we have of getting any answer here.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, or
You're like a private investigator when it comes to a home.
tell you, one of the things, like you asked if I love my job, and I do love my job. And I was kind of thinking about it yesterday, and, you know, going to be here. And, you know, as a kid, I loved playing hide and seek, right?
Yeah.
And finding that most optimal spot nobody's going to find you. And as a home inspector, I'm actually, you know, like I would be a wicked hide and seeker right now because I just, you know, I've figured out, and I know that, you know, the structures of the home, I'm like, nobody is ever going to, but I get to go in those, and I get, you know, it's for work, but it's having fun too. And
That's-
just doing an investigation on it.
You do enjoy your work.
I think we should get him, next time we see Dano, one of those plates, and it should say Dano Burnett, Wicked Hide and Seeker.
Wicked hide and seek.
I also wanted to ask just a question that's not on
Sure,
the list of
please,
questions.
Cheryl, yeah.
You know, I know from representing a lot of buyers in the past that if they see a crack in the parging on the outside,
Yes.
they automatically are scared and go, no, that means there's structural issues.
Or even inside.
Yep.
Yeah. So it happens a lot. We see lots of crack in parging. Parging is the thin cement that's just been put over a foundation for beautification or, you know, mild waterproofing. Not really, but just to help it. It's not the end of the world, right? There's a structural crack, and then there's non-structural cracks. And you know, like a doctor, you know, if you've got good news or bad news, you relay that information. But
Yeah.
then you give, you know, antidotes of how things could be fixed.
Right.
You know, sometimes, like, I was in a house up in the West End, my favorite part of the city, and there was an inspection, a pre-listing inspection on the house. And I always say, with all due respect, let me look at their report once I'm finished my report.
Right.
That's great,
I don't
yeah.
want to see what they
No
have.
bias.
It's no bias, and it's also like a game with myself.
Yeah.
You know, are you as sharp as you think you are? Are you finding everything that you should be finding? The purchaser says, well, in the report it said there was some loose mortar. And I said, okay, well, you know what? Why don't you bring me to the area that had some loose mortar, and let me just do some identification and my own inspection. So we go around to the back of this house, and he identifies right here is a loose mortar. I said, oh, okay, right here in the corner of the house, it was a solid brick home.
Yeah.
So then I proceeded to take bricks out of the wall, a double brick house, and I am now
the full brick.
inside of the house. And I said,
Oh my
I
gosh.
got to think, you know, the gentleman was in finance. I said, you know, you're finance, you're not a home inspector, but this is not supposed to happen. Right? This is a little bit more than loose mortar. I said, yes, they are correct. There is some loose mortar, but I think we have a little bit more of a structural issue happening here.
Loose bricks.
Yeah.
So then we went down into the basement, and it was awful. I literally was pulling off 4-inch thick slabs of foundation
Holy
off of this house.
Okay.
And the scary part was my purchaser, who was in finance, and not that finance people can't fix things.
Yeah.
But he said, well, I saw a YouTube video,
Oh, okay.
and it said that I could just
it
use
John?
A or B
Just get some
to
caulking.
fix this structure. And I said, I want to stop you right there, sir. I said, you know, if you are not proficient in fixing this structure, I really think it's not in your best interest to do such.
Yeah.
But who am I?
Did they buy that?
They did not buy the
They
house.
must have really wanted it to
Oh
be
my
like
goodness.
making
Yeah.
like, you know, if I could just
Yeah.
use this caulking to build the house again.
Caulking. We use caulking for everything. It's the homeowner
I see a lot of
fix.
caulking.
Yeah.
You do now.
No, I mean, I just from a weird. It's just I just saw.
I think that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
It's not safe for work, that one. Let's see. We already talked about a few of your tools that you use. You do infrared, moisture meter, drone. Tell me about the GCFI.
On I'm not familiar with the GCFI.
Is it GFCI?
It's the GFCI.
There, I
What
spelled
does
it
that
wrong.
stand for, John?
Ground fault circuit interrupter.
Bam.
Thank you very much.
Crushing it.
Every realtor should have that handy thing in their
I was
pocket.
going to bring mine to this podcast.
The podcast that you forgot.
Yes, I
because things that I've learned is that when you plug it in, you'll see if it's grounded or not. And if it's not grounded, it may mean that there is potentially knob and tube, or at least it's ungrounded.
Okay, let's just
electrical,
make sure that
receptacle.
everyone knows that we're talking about electrical.
Yes, electrical. Yeah.
No, that's a great tool.
Yeah,
That, anybody can have. There's not a real big learning curve.
Yeah.
But it does identify, some very important things. If it's ungrounded, if we have a polarity that's
Reversed.
put in reverse, so the white wires in the black and the black wires in the white, which are all electrical deficiencies and
Yep.
fire hazards.
Yeah.
I mean, it does
And
happen.
these are easy
A
fixes,
lot more
though.
than you think.
A ton. They can be easy fixes.
Yeah.
And we see them
Those
about
things.
100% of the time
Yeah.
we're in a home.
Yeah.
Right. Not necessarily ungrounded. That's not an easy fix. But
Correct.
reverse
Correct.
polarity.
Reverse polarity.
Maybe.
Or if it's missing a GFCI. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not a code inspector.
Yeah.
And that's a misconception with a home inspector as
Right.
well. Codes
Yes.
change. Like I was in a 100-year-old house or near around it yesterday.
Yeah.
And, codes 100 years ago were way different.
Yeah.
We've evolved dramatically. So things aren't there not maliciously. They have been there since the dawn of time.
Sure. Yeah.
I was going to say something about, you're not a code inspector, but we know that generally now in bathrooms and kitchens, you do want that GFCI
100%.
plug.
Yeah.
It's a good segue for our next question. Can you tell if something was built to code?
Not always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it because you're not a code inspector?
It would have to do with the fact that I'm not a code inspector. Yeah.
Yeah.
Inspector.
Yeah. See, Cheryl's coming on strong.
Yeah.
Cheers.
There you go. Yeah, she's good. That's right.
I do have some relevance because I've built, but I'm not a code inspector. And I always highlight that to people. I'm not an engineer.
Right.
I'm not a code inspector.
Right.
But I'll help you the best I can there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Kind of
sure.
like us saying we're not a mortgage broker or a home inspector.
Yeah.
But we do
Well,
have knowledge.
Exactly. And we're not experts in taxes and we say that, while we may have some knowledge, and you probably have more knowledge than most with regards to things such as code and structures and things, we always refer that out to an expert.
Yeah.
But you are able to tell if something is dangerous. I have clients ask me some railings in particular. Do you think this is to code? It's well, but do you have a small kid? Why is that of interest to you at this period in time?
Does your husband get drunk and fall over the stairs?
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas you can identify this is danger versus this is code or not code. Why is it of interest to you whether it even is at code? Is it a particular danger you're worried about, or?
I think it's people, and broadly stating, they've been instilled to ask that question. They don't really know why they're asking that, but it's I know that code is the safety standard. So I want to make sure that, but I have no understanding why I'm asking, or what it is, on the railings.
That's something also in a lot of listings where they'll say something like not, the basement apartments are not to code. And people get a little scared of that. Well, welcome to Toronto, where barely any basements are code.
80-90% of them are not exactly.
And also, old-timey houses where people really like the character, you're almost always going to find low railings. 'Cause
Yeah.
in the old times, apparently people were shorter.
Yeah, and
They had extra kids. They didn't care when.
Fell off.
and we've done some renovations as well recently where the basement stairs have been so steep where there wasn't the according rise over run.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna, before we sell the house, redo the entire stairs and rejig everything. It just know as a buyer that this is maybe not up to code and they're very steep steps. So if you
It's
want
an
to
aware
work,
factor.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
When drunk, don't go down those
That's
stairs.
right.
CYAs.
Yeah.
CYAs.
Let's talk about condos. Should condos be inspected, Dano?
Condos. Do condos have water and electricity?
Yes.
100%. So they should be inspected.
Are condos inspected?
It's not the same percentage as a home.
Right.
But absolutely. I did a condo inspection last week.
Okay.
Didn't have any AC. It was really rough. But it was an old condo.
Okay.
But I've had condos where I find nothing, and that's great.
Yeah.
Peace of mind, clean bill of health. And then I've had condos where there was dramatic water damage and electrical deficiencies,
And would these be things that the condominium corporation would take care of?
No. So typically on the interior of your condo, it's your responsibility. On the outside of the condo, it's their responsibility.
Yep.
And I try and highlight to people, you're in a condo, it's a 14th floor, 17th, 20th floor. If you have a water issue, that's now going to the 19th, the 18th, the 17th.
Right.
And now there's a liability factor because water's going south.
Sure.
So it, to me, is as important as a home inspection.
Right.
But a low percentage of my business.
We've done condo inspections before, but again, same with us, with our buyers, it's a lower percentage for sure.
And the ones that we have done, to the same point, very often come back with nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
How old was the condo to not have air conditioning?
Right. It had a fuse panel in it as well. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Oh,
No,
is it a
we've seen
condo
these
or a
before.
condo?
No, it was a condo. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
North Scarborough.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the mechanicals in many cases with condo towns, it might be a proper hot water tank, and that's owned or rented
Yeah.
by the
A
owner.
lot of condo towns
Heat
are,
pumps
are
as
the
well.
same as a house.
Even in newer condos, heat pumps are the responsibility of the unit owners, and a lot of people just don't understand that. But what do you do when site conditions are terrible?
So that's a great question. If I can't see it, I can't report on
Right,
it. So it's not safe, to climb up on a roof.
Yep.
Some people
Please don't
have
yell at your
argued
back.
with
Yeah.
me before, clients.
Okay.
What do you mean you're not going on that roof? I said, well, with all due respect, you're welcome to climb on that roof. Well, you won't. Oh no, you aren't. Yeah, because it's not safe.
Of course.
So safety is
Safety
paramount,
first.
right? So
Yeah.
for site conditions, if it's not a safe environment, I'm not going in. I want to work, I want to help you, but so if the roof's covered, I say to people, that's one part of this structure that we can't look at, but the attic itself will give me a lot of information of what's happening upstairs.
Right.
So yeah, I can't see the shingles, but I'm going to have a pretty good understanding if there's some water intrusion or if we've got some mold or if there's any structural damage by getting inside the attic. So is it ideal? No, we want to look at it, but winter comes unfortunately for several months in this
Yeah.
glorious place.
Yeah.
I also will come back too. So just to say, it is part of my inspection. And if I didn't look at it, I will always make an appointment or have my clients call me back, when maybe it might be when they take possession.
Okay.
Perhaps the weather's shifted. I've gone back to take a look at a roof. I couldn't, people had so much stuff inside of a room I couldn't access the attic or something that has some huge importance.
Okay.
Right.
Then I will make
great.
that time to go back and help those people.
Above and beyond, man. We've got 2 more questions.
Do you often do inspections outside of residential resale?
Commercial.
That's our focus, and
New
we know
build.
you from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will do a mild amount of commercial, depending on the size of it.
Mild
It really comes down to what my insurance allows me to inspect.
Okay.
Right, and that ties back to, you really want somebody with insurance, and
Yeah.
I do want to get paid for what I'm doing, but if I am not doing it in a way that I am safe, liability wise,
Right.
then unfortunately I'm just not going to do it.
Sure.
So that's on the commercial. New builds, that's one that people, well, why on earth would you inspect a new build home? It was just built.
Yeah.
And I say, great, let's just take a look at say 1940 and 2024. Fair to say that our pace is mildly faster and people are much more impatient and want things yesterday.
And some developers are not building as
Yeah.
quality
Also,
as others.
100%.
Yeah.
Polarity reversed. We've seen those.
Oh yeah,
in
and brand new builds. Yeah.
And also the acceptance of
The standards.
deficiencies,
Yeah.
the standards that you have to swallow sometimes as a purchaser of a new home.
Yeah.
But I find things wrong a lot of times in a new build.
Cottages? Have you done cottages?
I do cottages. I do have a stipulation that I must stay for at least 2 to 3 days, just so I can get a true understanding of the
Really?
environment.
Not a nice cottage.
That's okay.
You can slum it.
When I rough it, it just makes it that much better the next time.
You find a lot of good hiding spots in those old slum ones.
I have one final question. Has anyone ever asked you, would you buy this house?
Has anyone asked me if I'd buy this house? I would say about 99% of the times I'm with people.
I'm so surprised at that.
It's a question that I get. And, I tie it back to Switzerland.
Yeah.
And, if all the information I've given you makes you feel great about this and you move forward with it, then I'm stoked.
Right.
You buy this house. And if I've given you that information and you say, this is more than I want to take on, you know, and it doesn't mean that it's falling down, but you know, everybody has a threshold, then I'm happy that you had that educated decision to walk away from that house. You know, I will say jokingly that, you know, I own a house and I can't afford to buy another house. So, you know,
It's a good one.
Have you ever said, yes, absolutely, or no, absolutely not?
No.
Ever?
Yeah, smart. Switzerland would never
there's
say
things that I will say are nice attributes, or, you know, more major deficiencies, and try and highlight the information to people. But at the end of the day, it's your decision, and you make that decision. You live with that decision
based on the information that
based
they
on the
provided.
information.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what I've learned about Dano today?
Tell me, Cheryl.
That he is a fantastic, or at least I perceive him to be, a fantastic home inspector. He is also a doctor who delivers news. He's also a private investigator, and he's a model.
Yeah.
Or handsome enough to be a
And
model.
that's just without the glasses. Then when you have the glasses on.
Funny, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
say doctor, it's his bedside manner. It really,
yes.
it really is. Yeah, when you're dealing with our buyer
when you're
clients.
delivering those news.
Yeah.
that news.
And even with our sellers, you know, for
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's the way you deliver the information.
Yep.
Yeah, trying to take emotion out. Do we have any takeaways, lady? Oh, well, that
Other
was
than
your
that,
those are your
that is
takeaways,
my
right?
takeaway. My takeaway
Handsome,
is
bedside manner, knowledgeable,
private investigator,
private
hide and
investigator,
seeker.
hide and seeker.
There are more
Wicked hide and
instances.
seeker, I guess.
Wicked
Yeah.
hide and
Yeah.
seeker. Then you would think where a home inspection is a good idea, right? Everybody sort of standardly thinks about it. Okay, I'm going to buy a house, I'll do an inspection. But there's a lot more instances where it's very useful.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dano. You know what? Before we wrap it up, we do a little segment where we support local businesses and we give them a shout out.
Okay.
And so Nicole and I have been door knocking a segment of Leslieville for about the last 3 years. And once every year or two, we ask everyone for their favorite local businesses. And this one just received the most from our most recent campaign. And I'm not sure if you've ever been there. It's on Queen Street East at 1056 Queen Street East. It's Samira's Kitchen. They do amazing burgers and pizza. They were actually in the news last November because they also did like a pay it forward campaign where people could put and prepay meals and just stick them up.
fantastic.
So anyone in the neighborhood, if they're maybe having some food deficiencies, would be able to go and get a free meal. So I just want to give them a shout out. They're absolutely fantastic. Chef Rajesh Chamoli, he was actually a chef for 4 seasons until he and his family started Samira's Kitchen back in 2017, all homemade from scratch. Yeah. So if you're listening out there, folks, and you're in Leslieville, go and check out Samira's Kitchen and Chef Rajesh Chamoli and his family. We're going to be producing a video for all their social medias, and we'll be pushing it around. So go and try them if you can.
We were organized. We should have been like, and thank you, Dano. Let's have a pizza now.
Oh, yeah,
for being
exactly.
On the podcast.
We're gonna take you there.
to nothing over here, guys.
Organized.
We're going to take you there for lunch after this. How's that?
Are we?
Yeah, of course we are.
He has an appointment.
I know. Yeah, thank you so much for joining
No,
us.
I
Dano.
appreciate it.
This
It's
has
a
been-
lot of fun. I enjoy working with the team.
Yeah.
You know, I don't just say it. You know,
Am I your least favorite?
No. I love you
No.
equally.
Yeah.
There you go. It's a
No, but you know what?
He
it
is
is?
Switzerland, isn't he?
I like to have fun and maintain professionalism, and I enjoy working with the three of you because I feel like it's emulated.
Yeah.
Right? You have great clients, you enjoy it, you help them, and that's really what it's about.
Yeah. And if there's any realtors out there, if you're looking for a great home inspector for your clients, reach out to Dano Burnett. I'll put his contact information in the YouTube description. And if there's any buyers or sellers out there, if you're looking for a great home inspector, look up Dano Burnett again with Pillar to Post. So thank you for coming and dropping by. As always, you can find out more about us, our partners over at therealestatepodcast.ca. You can follow us on our socials, which is at JNC Toronto Group. That's Instagram, that's Facebook. But YouTube really is the best because you get to see our smiling faces, our banter, our interaction. And that's the reason why I set up like 20 cameras here to be able
We
to...
keep getting more.
I know, more and
Every
more
time
cameras.
I come, I'm like, what?
Do you have any social media you want to shout out?
I am on Insta as well.
Okay.
We'll
put
I'm
that-
striving to be better.
Okay, we all are.
Best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Dano. Enjoy the rest of your summer. It was great to see you. And
All right.
thank you,
That's all,
listeners.
guys.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to therealestatepodcast.ca. Visit our website for more episodes and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at JNC Toronto Group.